Welcome at the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, Nairobi Nursery, and this is a center that takes care of orphan baby elephants and orphan baby rhinos, and later on are reintroducing them back into the wild. We are situated right inside Nairobi National Park, and all the bushes around is part of the park. So the elephants at the moment are out in the park, learning by natural instinct on how to behave as elephants, browsing around, feeding on different types of vegetation. They're always accompanied by the keepers, so they have the keepers with them to provide protection whenever needed. The little young ones are being shown what to feed on every now and then. So it is a daily process where the elephants go out in the morning at 6 and are accompanied by the keepers and come back for bed at 5. So the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust is a project that was started officially back in the year 1977 after the death of David Sheldrick, who was a naturalist and the senior founder warden of the large Tsavo National Park. He died in 1977. And this project was started in his memory under the management of the widow, who is now the late Dr. Dame Daphne Sheldrick, who's been running the project since then until 2 years ago when she passed on, leaving the mandate to her daughter Angela Sheldrick, who was also running the project together with the mother for about 17 years before the mother passed on. And right now the project is under the management of Angela Sheldrick. So we take care of orphan baby elephants and orphan baby rhinos, and later on reintroducing them back into the wild. And that's why all the babies you're going to see here today are orphans, and all have been rescued from different parts of the country, and they have different reasons for being orphans. So once we rescue them, it means they were found without the mother, without the rest of the family members. Hand-reared them here for 3 years, and any time after the age of 3, start to reintroduce them back into the wild. Within Tsavo Conservation Area, we've got 3 reintroduction centers based with our keepers, who will lead them out to the park until the time they get adopted in a herd of wild elephants, and we set them free. Here comes the elephants running for the milk. We're actually having the 11 a.m. milk feed, and we've got 2 elephants who've already joined us, being led by Mukoka. Mukoka is a 2-year-old elephant. He was rescued from northern part of Tsavo Conservation Area. He was identified all alone within the park, identified by aerial surveillance who were on patrol and happened to sight this baby all alone. Observed him for some time, because it is not normal for a young elephant to be found alone. One needs to be with the mother or the rest of the family members. Him being alone meant that he was an orphan, and they thought maybe the mother or a herd might be interested in him. So our team observed him for some time, hoping for Mukoka to be reunited in any herd or with the mother or the original herd, but none of those happened, and a decision was made to rescue him. He was about 8 months, and right now he's about 2 years old, so far doing all right in the nursery. We do have the youngest elephant in the nursery at the moment at the far end. Her name is Naleku. She's approximately 1 year old. She was rescued from the Masai Mara, and her mother died from a natural disease. She was left in the company of an auntie who was taking care of her, who already had her own baby. And this auntie could not provide milk to 2 babies. So Naleku was only being provided with protection and no milk, which means she could not have survived. As I said before, a young elephant needs the mother's milk for the first 2 years. So if one happens to lose the mother when they're 2, it is obvious that they cannot survive. So that is why Naleku would have only provided protection, but in the long run starved to death. And that's the reason to why a decision was made to rescue him. Right now, she's a girl. Right now, she's approximately 1 year old and came in the nursery at the age of about 7 months old. She's one of the elephants that we've realized to be very independent, and she's very courageous at the same time. She wants to do her own things. Most of them, when they come in the nursery and they're still very young, they always get attached to the big girls in the nursery. But Naleku always wants to do her own things, always wants to have her own way, and that's why we realize that she's one elephant that is very independent at a very young age. We are being joined by two more elephants, and the two coming in are being led by Kiombo, the oldest bull that we've got in the nursery at the moment, who is 2.5 years old, and being followed by Nabulu. Kiombo is right close to me, and Kiombo is 2.5 years. Kiombo was rescued from the Masai Mara. He was identified all alone within the park, while at the age of below 1 year old. It is obvious that at 1 year, this elephant was not in a position to feed on enough greens to survive. At the same time, at 1 year old, he could not have defended himself in case there was an attack from the hyenas or the lions. And that is why it was necessary that he's rescued. We could not tell exactly the whereabouts of the mother and the rest of the family members, and that's why he came in the nursery. He's approximately 2.5 years old. We also have Nabulu, who came from the Masai Mara as well. And Nabulu is approximately 3 years old. She's the second in command in the nursery, being the second oldest female after Maisha, assisting Maisha to take care of the rest of the group. So she's the assistant main matriarch. Nabulu was rescued from the Masai Mara. She was identified very thin and weak, a sign that she had stayed for some time without the mother's milk and without the right food, and that's why we rescued her. Right now, she's approximately 3 years. She was very thin and very weak and very much dehydrated by the time she came in the nursery. But so far, she's doing all right at approximately 3 years old. Anytime ready to go back into the world and start the process of being reintroduced. But at the moment, she's assisting Maisha to take care of all the 11 orphans that we've got in the nursery at the moment. So that is a group of 4. We have a total of 11 elephants that will be joining us today. We've got 11 in the nursery at the moment, and they all come to us when they are found out in the wild at the age of 2 years and below, so that we can take care of them here, provide them with milk and all the care that they have lost out in the wild from the mothers, since they didn't have any. It is obvious if a mother dies while with the rest of the family members, the other family members will help protect and care for the baby, but will not provide milk, which means in the long run that young baby will starve to death, and that's why they have to be rescued. We're being joined by 2 more elephants, being led by Rojo, the youngest boy, followed by Ziwadi. And Rojo is approximately 15 months old. Rojo was rescued from Tsavo West National Park, and Rojo's mother is believed to have been killed by poachers, and that's why he was left alone. This is an elephant that came in the nursery very traumatized, very stressed, having seen what happened to the mother, and stayed there for a long time, not being in a position to help. Finding yourself in a position where you're losing your mother, but you can't do anything. So that really stressed him a lot, and traumatized. He came in traumatized, and that stress has been disturbing him, and that's why he got hooked to the big females in the nursery. And that's why when they're out in the world, you'll always find Rojo close to one of the big females. They're always interested in taking care of him and calming him down, and that is what will make him to be relieved from his stress and trauma, and after some time he will be right. Close to me is Ziwadi, and Ziwadi is about 2 years old. Ziwadi was rescued from the Masai Mara. Ziwadi was identified all alone within the park. Nobody knows exactly the whereabouts of the mother and the rest of the family members. When she came in the nursery, we discovered that she was always being left behind. Sometimes she wants to go the opposite direction from the rest of the group. And later on, we discovered that she's epileptic, and sometimes she goes into seizures. And when that happens, she's left behind by the rest of the family members. And we suspect that might have been the reason to why she was left behind by the rest of the family members. We put her on medication. She's been improving very well. She stayed for quite some time without getting into the seizures, and we hope by the time she'll be ready to go back into the world, all will be back to normal and she'll be able to survive a normal life out there. I do have Maisha right close to me, who is the main matriarch in the nursery, slightly over 3 years, the mother figure of all the 11 elephants. And Maisha was rescued from Tsavo conservation area. She is a drought victim. Her mother is believed to have died from starvation due to drought, and that's why she was left as an orphan. She took over the leadership role after the big girls in the nursery, Tagwa, Tamioi, and Kesha, left and went to Tsavo to start the process of being reintroduced back into the world. But she has proved to be fit for that job. She's actually responsible for all the others, and she's also giving priority to Rojo close to me, just like the other girls were doing, which means she's the perfect matriarch at the moment in the nursery, and she's doing that very well. I do have Naboishu on my right, who happens to be the latest arrival in the nursery, having been with us for almost a month now, having been rescued from the Masai Mara, and also the mother died from a natural disease, and that's why Naboishu was left alone. Behind Naboishu is Maktau, 2.5 years, and Maktau was rescued from Tsavo conservation area, victim of human-wildlife conflict. The mother believed to have been separated from the baby by human beings, and that's why Maktau was left alone at 3 months, right now approximately 2.5 years old. The last one taking her bottle is Kiasa, and Kiasa is approximately 3 years old. Kiasa was rescued from Tsavo conservation area. No, really the last one, second last. She was rescued from Tsavo conservation area. She's a drought victim. She's an elephant with 2 coins of a character. Sometimes she's perfect in terms of taking care of the little ones. Sometimes she's very bully when it comes a feeding time. She's a no-nonsense elephant during that time. She doesn't want to listen to the keepers nor to the other orphans. As long as she gets the bottles, that's why she puts in front. Other things come after. But after the milk, now she's a good mother. She wants to protect the young ones. She's very protective, and that's why she's got a mixed character when you compare her with all the others. We believe by the time Maisha and Nabulu will be going back into the world, she'll be left behind to be in charge of all the rest. She'll be the main matriarch, and we believe by that time she'll be a very, very tough matriarch. The young ones will not be able to play around. I will talk about the last orphan in the nursery, and this is Lara. Lara is approximately 2 years old now. Lara was rescued from the Masai Mara or Lara Conservancy. She was identified all alone within this conservancy and suspected to have been separated from her family by human beings. She's an elephant that when she came in the nursery, she was very, very thin and weak, having stayed for a long time without her mother's milk. And at a young age of about 7 months, they don't feed on enough greens. They entirely rely on the mother's milk. Elephants start to develop the milk teeth at the age of between 1 to 4 months. They are in a position to start to learn to feed on different types of vegetation at the age of about 8 months. And after the age of 1 year, that is when they can feed on enough greens, but still not enough to survive in the world. They still need the mother's milk. Until after the age of about over 2 years, that is when they can feed on enough vegetation and forget about the mother's milk. And after 2 years, they start to protrude their tusks, and that is when the mothers will stop them from getting the milk. And so Lara being identified alone at the age of about 7 months meant that she could not have survived. She needed to be rescued, and that's why she came in the nursery. So far, are doing all right, and we're very happy to note that she's one elephant that is interested in taking care of the two little ones in the nursery, Rojo and Naleku, and at some point you'll find Naleku having Lara and Mukoka as her favorite or her best friend. So she will be with the two or all by herself, which means Lara will make a good mother in future as well. So that is a group of 11 elephants in the nursery at the moment, all under our care for the first 3 years before we start the process of reintroducing them back into the wild within Tsavo Conservation Area. Our team in Tsavo will reintroduce them out in the wild on daily basis until the time they decide by themselves when they're ready to go. When they go out in the park, they get to interact with different groups of wild elephants, and some will invite them, and so they spend the day together. Some wild herds will reject them, others will ignore them, others will want to charge them. So those are the different reactions that they will encounter in the wild on daily basis. But they have our keepers to provide help whenever needed. But after some time, they make a special bond with specific wild herds of their choice. And those wild herds will invite them in their families. They will protect them. They will train them. They will show them everything within the park. They'll also warn them against human beings, which means these orphans will have become as wild as any other elephant out there. That process takes a minimum of about 5 years in Tsavo before they get adopted. And our orphans make their own choice of which wild herd they want to join. They also decide by themselves whom they want to accompany with and at what time. Our keepers will just observe and see the reaction and let them do what they want out in the world. We're very happy to note that for the years we've been taking care of the orphans, we've got a good number of orphans giving birth to newborn wild babies, and that means a lot in terms of success because the population has increased. If those orphans would not have survived, they'll not have gotten the babies, and the population will have decreased. So we are happy to see our orphans giving birth out in the world, which means the population will increase in the long run. So if you are joining us now, we are at the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, Nairobi Nursery. We've got 11 baby elephants in the nursery at the moment, under our care for 24/7, which means we are feeding them day and night in terms of milk and greens. In terms of milk, we feed them on intervals of 3 hours day and night. When a baby elephant comes in the nursery, if one is below the age of a year, we feed them on demand. After the age of 1 year, we put them on 3 hourly. And when they go to Tsavo, the duration increases from 3 hours to 6 hours. This is to discourage them on the bottle so that they can concentrate on vegetation because they're ready to completely become wild. So while in the nursery it's a 3 hourly basis, out in the park the milk heads out to the orphans where they are. And right now we brought them here where we normally have our public viewing so that they can have the bottles, feed on the greens, enjoy the dust pile if they want. We do have a water hole as well, but because it is still too cold in the morning, they will not be getting into the water hole at the moment. We spend the night in the rooms. This is for those babies that are 2 years and below, for the purposes of feeding them at night on milk, for the purposes of covering them with blankets to make sure that they're kept warm for the night. And this is because elephants are very much susceptible to pneumonia. It becomes a problem once they got pneumonia because you cannot see the signs in advance. And you cannot see the signs in advance because an elephant cannot cough. The lungs are attached to the rib cage. By the time you see some water dropping from their trunk, it is already too late. The elephant dies within a few moments. That is why we have to make sure that they're kept warm. You might be wondering, or you might want to ask, how does that apply in the world? Elephants are always in a herd, and all the tiny babies are surrounded by the rest of the big ones. So the babies will get hit from the big ones. And here we don't have a big herd. We only have a bunch of orphans who are not related. That's why we have to improvise the stockades and the blankets to make sure that the babies are kept warm. And of course, we spend the night in the rooms for the purposes of keeping them company. They are social animals out in the world. You'll always find them in a herd or in a group, and if one is all alone, then something wrong has happened. Maybe that one has been sent away by the matriarch for discipline purposes, or maybe it is a fully grown bull elephant. The boy elephants will leave their families after maturity, which is over the age of about 15 years. That is when they want to go and join a bachelor herd somewhere else. Or they want to go and stay by themselves. So they want to go and join another herd to look for females, especially during the mating period. So that is why in most cases you'll find them in herds. And since these babies have already lost their families, when they came in the nursery, we are part of their family members, and that is why we have to be with them all day and all night as well. Now, the milk we are feeding on these elephants is not an elephant's milk, and this is obviously because we cannot milk a wild elephant and get the real milk. We feed them on a human baby formula, and this formula was pioneered by the late Dr. Dame Daphne Sheldrick after 28 years of research. Before that, she used the try and error method and lost most of the first orphans. But once she pioneered this formula, most orphans have survived and gone back into the world, and that is why it is believed to be close to real mother's milk. And since we feed them on intervals of 3 hours day and night, one elephant takes a total of 24 liters of milk in a day for the big babies, and the two little ones, one elephant takes about 14 liters of milk in a day. And some of you might be wondering what reasons have caused them to be left orphans. There are different reasons that have caused these babies to be left orphans. And human-wildlife conflict is one of the major reasons that has caused most of them to be left orphans. And human-wildlife conflict, I'm afraid, it is on the increase in our country at the moment. And this is because of the increase in the population of man or human beings compared to the space or size of land. And that has caused human beings to occupy areas that belong to wild animals. And that is why areas where these animals have known originally to browse and look for water have now been occupied by people. Migratory routes of wild animals no longer exist. They've been occupied by farmers. And people are doing farming, building structures, doing lots of developments in these areas. And that is why if these animals want to migrate from one area to another, they will find it very difficult. And they will find it difficult because they'll encounter the crops and the structures, and the owners of these crops and structures will want to fight the animals away. In that process of the fight, the babies will be separated from the rest of the family members. Or sometimes the mothers will end up being killed and the baby is left alone. And if identified, we are conducted and have to fly out to go and help rescue them. And that's why human-life conflict is one of the major reasons that has caused most of them to be left orphans and therefore brought here in the nursery. You can enjoy Naboishu enjoying the dust pile over there, using his trunk perfectly throw the dust on himself. So ivory poaching is one of the other reasons that has caused some of them to be left orphans. And ivory poaching is still a problem in our country and the whole of Africa as well. And you might have realized one of the orphans in this group, the mother was killed by poachers. And it is unfortunate that ivory poaching is still taking place. I want to say it's unfortunate because it's being perfected by we human beings, and yet it is our role as human beings to care and protect for these wild animals. And so as human beings, we fail in this role by causing them to be left orphans just because we are interested in their ivory. And an elephant ivory adds no value to human beings. And that's why I would like to urge all of you who are here today, or those who are listening to us today, to help stop poaching. You can help stop poaching if you want, right from your home, right from your country. You only need to desist or stop buying things that are made from ivory. You only need to buy anything that comes from these animals or from the rhino horn. You also have to ensure that you spread the word. You talk to the people neighboring you, your friends and family, to let them know the importance of these animals having the ivory. And if we all do that, we will have help to protect and care for their lives. We need to remember that all animals have the right to life, including the elephants, the rhinos, the lions, the hyenas, and all other animals, both domestic and wild. So that is why we need to help protect them, and by ensuring that we don't buy things that come from ivory or from the rhino horn, and that will help them have a better natural life out in the world. A few of them are orphans from natural reasons like old age, natural diseases, and starvation back into the world. During the long period of drought, lots of animals will die out because there is not enough food, since there is no water. And sometimes during the heavy rains, we've got lots of them getting stuck in the mud, or actually being left behind or washed down the rivers. So both seasons have reactions towards these animals. And some of them, the mothers will die because of starvation during the long periods of droughts. So natural reasons have also caused some of them to be left orphans. So if you're joining us now, we are at the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, Nairobi Nursery. The elephants have just finished their 11 a.m. milk feed, and they will be heading out to continue with the rest of the day. And you might be wondering how we get the milk or how the project is being funded. You can help support the project by donating towards the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. You can help support the project by going to a website and finding out how you can donate. You can buy a bottle of milk for these elephants. You can adopt an elephant either for yourself or for a friend. You can also donate towards other projects that are being done by the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, and that will have changed the lives of all animals in the world. The Sheldrick Wildlife Trust is working together with the Kenya Wildlife Service for the good of all animals in general. And that is why we've got other projects like mobile veterinary units, anti-poaching teams, community projects. We've got the aerial surveillance, and all that is to ensure that all animals are safe in the parks. For example, a mobile veterinary unit will help treat any injured animals out there and set them free to continue with their own natural life. Our anti-poaching teams will make sure that they put off all the snares out from the parks to ensure that the parks are safe. They'll also send away the people that are burning charcoal in the park, and also send away the poachers from the parks. And that will ensure that the animals are safe out in the parks. Our community project will help educate the communities neighboring the parks and the reserves on how to coexist and stay together, neighboring one another in a peaceful way. Our dog unit will work together with our anti-poaching teams to ensure that there are no poachers out in the park. Our aerial surveillance will patrol around to ensure that there is nothing happening in the park that is illegal or evil. For example, there are no poachers out in the park, there are no fires out in the park, there are no charcoal burners out in the park. And if there is any, they will inform our rangers on the ground, and also to ensure that all animals. For example, there is no sick animal in the park, and if there is any, if they see any from above, they'll inform our mobile veterinary unit who will go on the ground and help treat the injured animals as well. So all this is doing together with the Kenya Wildlife Service to ensure that all is good. So I'd like to take this opportunity and thank everybody who has joined us today for this 11 a.m. Live feed. The elephants will be walking away into the Nairobi National Park to continue with the rest of the day and their normal program until at 5 in the evening when they come back for bed. So thank you very much for joining us. We believe you've enjoyed what you've seen. We shall be bringing you more of these live videos on Wednesday.